I got kicked out of my house on Christmas Eve by my own mother. I wish I could say it was a misunderstanding or a one-off. But no, it was just the final nail in a coffin she'd been building for years. And the irony. She did it with that twisted smile she reserved for special occasions, like ruining my self-esteem or reminding me that my sister Lena was the real daughter. Growing up, my parents were the kind of people who thought the sun rose and set on Lena. She was the firstborn, the prodigy, the trophy child they polished for every family gathering. I was just the afterthought, the backup kid, the one who'd ruin family photos by blinking at the wrong moment or picking the wrong dress for Easter Sunday. It sounds petty, but when you're a kid, every eye roll, every muttered, "Why can't you be more like your sister?" feels like a punch to the gut. It wasn't that I was a problem child. I got decent grades, stayed out of trouble, and helped around the house, but somehow that was never enough. My accomplishments barely registered while Lena's every sneeze was treated like a symphony. She aced a math test it called for a steak dinner. I made the honor roll. A shrug and a lukewarm nice job over the kitchen sink. But the favoritism hit different that Christmas Eve. I'd just turned 18, freshly accepted to a decent state university, and working part-time at a grocery store to save for my first semester. I had this naive idea that maybe, just maybe, my parents would finally see me as something more than Lena's understudy. I even saved up to buy them a nice bottle of their favorite whiskey, something I knew they'd appreciate. It cost me a week's worth of shifts, but I wanted to show them I cared. When I got home, the house was full. Relatives I hadn't seen in years. Their kids tearing through the living room, the fireplace crackling in the background. It felt warm, almost comforting, until I realized Lena was holding court in the center of it all, wearing a new cashmere sweater and diamond earrings. She looked like a damn Hallmark card, laughing too loudly at something Dad said, while Mom beamed like she'd won the lottery. I set the whiskey down on the kitchen counter where Mom was basting a turkey. "Merry Christmas." "Mom," I said, trying to sound cheerful. She glanced at the bottle, then at me, her lips pressing into that familiar thin line of mild disappointment. "Oh, honey," she said, taking the bottle and setting it aside like it was a used napkin. "You really shouldn't have." For a second, I thought she meant it in a good way, that maybe the gesture had touched her. Then I noticed the box of high-end whiskey already on the counter, complete with a ribbon and a handwritten tag that read, "To Mom and Dad with love, Lena." I felt my stomach twist, the familiar sting of being one-upped without even knowing it. I plastered on a smile and walked into the living room, hoping to blend into the chaos. I ended up cornered by my Aunt Susan, who immediately launched into a monologue about Lena's recent promotion at her marketing firm. I nodded along, barely hearing her over the sound of my parents' laughter from the kitchen. Then came the real gut punch. As we gathered around the table, Mom cleared her throat, tapping her wineglass to get everyone's attention. Before we dig in, she said, her eyes bright with that particular shine she got when talking about Lena, "I just want to say how proud we are of Lena. She's worked so hard this year, and we couldn't be prouder of the woman she's become." Applause. Actual applause around the table, like we were at a damn awards ceremony. I felt my face heat up, my appetite evaporating as I stared down at the mashed potatoes I'd helped peel earlier that morning. Then, without missing a beat, she added, "And of course, we're proud of all our kids." She shot me a quick, perfunctory smile before raising her glass. "To family." To family, everyone echoed clinking glasses as I sat there, the afterthought in my own home. After dinner, I retreated to my room, the one place in that house where I felt like I could breathe. I closed the door, leaned against it, and stared at the peeling posters on my wall, remnants of a childhood I'd been trying to outgrow for years. I was just about to take a deep breath and let it go when I heard a knock. "Can we talk?" my mother said, pushing the door open without waiting for my answer. She looked at me for a moment, her eyes scanning my room like she was evaluating a cluttered garage. I crossed my arms, bracing myself for whatever passive-aggressive lecture she'd rehearsed this time. "It's about college," she started, stepping inside. "Your father and I have been talking, and we think it might be better if you take a gap year." My heart sank. I opened my mouth to argue, but she held up a hand, silencing me. "It's just, Lena's career is really taking off, and we want to help her get settled. It's a crucial time for her, and, well, we think it's only fair to focus our resources on her for now." I felt the air leave my lungs. They weren't just asking me to delay my life, they were asking me to step aside entirely to play the supporting role they'd written for me without even consulting me. "I can take out loans," I said, my voice shaking. "I've been saving, I can handle it." She sighed, as if I was being unreasonable. "We just think it's better this way, sweetheart. You'll understand someday." I bit down on the inside of my cheek, the taste of iron sharp on my tongue. I watched as she left, closing the door behind her with a soft click, sealing me into the small, suffocating box they'd built for me. That was the moment I realized I wasn't just a footnote in their story, I was a placeholder, a backup plan. And as I sat there, fists clenched, a single thought took root in my mind, cold and unforgiving. Maybe it was time to stop playing by their rules. After that Christmas Eve, something inside me broke. I stopped trying. Stopped hoping for the pat on the back that never came, for the "we're proud of you" that was always reserved for Lena. I withdrew piece by piece like a flower folding in on itself before the frost hits. I started coming home later, making excuses to stay out, even if it just meant walking around the block a few extra times or sitting in my car outside the house until I had no choice but to go inside. At first, my parents didn't seem to notice. Or maybe they just didn't care. They were too busy with Lena's latest promotion. Her new apartment, her never-ending list of firsts that my mother would announce like she was reading a royal proclamation. But then, like clockwork, the guilt trip started. Subtle at first, my mom cornering me in the kitchen, a tight smile on her face as she asked if I was okay if I felt supported in my decision to take a gap year. My dad giving me those heavy, silent stares over the dinner table, his jaw clenched like he was holding back some grand piece of fatherly advice he thought I desperately needed. I became the ghost in my own house. I'd slip in and out, taking my meals in my room, avoiding the living room where they huddled around Lena's FaceTime calls, their voices dipping to whispers whenever I passed by. Then came the invasion of privacy. My mom started knocking on my door at odd hours, her voice syrupy sweet, as she asked if I was doing okay, if I needed to talk. I'd mumble something non-committal, feeling her eyes linger on the back of my head as I pretended to be absorbed in my phone. One night, I came home to find my door slightly ajar, the faint scent of my mother's perfume hanging in the air. I pushed the door open, my heart racing, and saw my journal sitting slightly askew on my desk, the edge of the ribbon bookmark peeking out like a guilty secret. I crossed the room, flipping it open to a page I knew I hadn't left it on. The words I'd scrawled in a fit of anger a week earlier stared back at me. They act like I don't exist, like I'm some burden they're too polite to fully acknowledge. I'm just an extra, a placeholder until Lena comes around. I can't keep living like this. I felt a rush of cold anger, my pulse hammering in my ears. She'd read it. She'd actually read it. I stormed downstairs, fists clenched, and found her in the kitchen stirring a pot of soup. She looked up, her smile tightening as I approached. "Why were you in my room?" I demanded, my voice coming out sharper than I intended. She blinked, taken aback, then quickly recovered, her face settling into that infuriatingly calm mask she always wore when caught. "I was just tidying up, honey. Your room was a mess and I thought I'd help you out." I felt my teeth grind together, the muscles in my jaw aching. "Don't lie to me. You read my journal." Her eyes flickered a brief flash of guilt before the mask slipped back into place. She set the spoon down, wiping her hands on a dish towel as she stepped closer. "I was worried about you. You've been so distant lately, and I just wanted to make sure you weren't, struggling." I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. Struggling. Of course I was struggling, but it wasn't the kind of struggle she'd ever understand. It wasn't about school or friends or typical teenage angst. It was the constant grinding ache of being an afterthought in my own family. "Stay out of my room," I said, my voice low, every word laced with the quiet fury I'd been swallowing for years. "You don't get to invade my privacy just because you feel guilty." I turned on my heel and left her standing there, her face pale, the sound of the bubbling soup the only thing breaking the silence. From that night on, I kept my door locked, my journal hidden under a loose floorboard I pried up in the corner of my closet. I started keeping my distance, even more, pulling back until I was practically a stranger in my own home. I thought it would end there, that maybe they'd finally get the hint, but I underestimated just how deep their need for control ran. It wasn't long after that confrontation that the real cracks started to show. I had become a ghost in my own home, barely speaking to my parents, dodging Lena's calls, and keeping my head down as I plotted my escape. I had no grand plan, just a simmering determination not to be their backup plan forever. Then one evening I came home to find my dad in the living room, his laptop open, his face twisted into that rare expression of genuine concern. He glanced up as I walked in, quickly closing the screen like a kid caught with his hand in the cookie jar. "Everything okay?" I asked, keeping my tone deliberately neutral. He hesitated, his eyes darting toward the kitchen where my mom was clattering dishes, the sound too aggressive to be casual. "Just some financial stuff. Nothing for you to worry about." I shrugged, not interested in whatever middle-aged crisis he was trying to shield me from, and made my way upstairs. But something about his expression stuck with me, that flicker of panic I'd only ever seen when he got a particularly brutal credit card bill. or when the mortgage came up in conversation. I couldn't shake the feeling, so later that night I waited until my parents had gone to bed. I crept back downstairs, my heart pounding like I was about to break into a stranger's house. I found his laptop still on the coffee table, the screen dark but still warm. I nudged the mouse, and the screen flickered to life, the login page glaring back at me. For a moment, I hesitated. This felt like crossing a line one I could never uncross. But then I remembered the way my mother had violated my privacy, her excuses dripping with faux concern. I typed in his usual password, my sister's birthday, of course, and the screen unlocked. What I saw made my blood run cold. Open tabs littered his browser like scattered wreckage, bank account statements, overdue bills, emails to financial advisors. I clicked on one of the emails, my pulse hammering in my ears. Dear Mr. Thompson, we've reviewed your account and I regret to inform you that without additional income or a significant cut in expenses, you risk foreclosure on your property within the next 6 months. Please contact us at your earliest convenience to discuss restructuring options. I sat back, my heart thudding painfully against my ribs. Foreclosure. They were about to lose the house. I scanned through the other emails, piecing together a timeline of financial mismanagement, risky investments, and outright lies. They'd been borrowing against the house to help Lena buy her condo, to pay for her graduate degree, to cover her car payments. All the while, they'd been feeding me lines about family sacrifices and shared responsibilities. I felt the anger rise in my throat, bitter and choking. They hadn't just been neglecting me, they'd been actively sabotaging my future to prop up Lena's. I dug deeper. Finding the kicker, a separate bank account in my parents' name set up to funnel money directly to Lena, complete with monthly transfers that would have more than covered my college tuition. I sat there for a long time, staring at the screen, the betrayal settling into my bones like a cold, unwelcome guest. They had chosen her over and over again at my expense. But as the initial shock wore off, something else took its place, a cold, calculated clarity. I had leverage now. The kind of leverage that could tip the scales in my favor for once. I shut the laptop, my hands shaking, and crept back upstairs. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. My mind raced with possibilities, the gears turning faster than they had in years. If they wanted to treat me like a backup plan, I'd show them just how dangerous a backup plan could be. The discovery of that hidden bank account changed everything. It was like I'd been handed the final puzzle piece, the one that confirmed every suspicion, every bitter thought I'd swallowed over the years. I wasn't just the overlooked kid I was, the sacrifice they'd been willing to make, the asset they'd quietly liquidated to keep Lena's perfect life afloat. The next few days, I played my part perfectly. I kept my head down, my words measured, my expressions neutral. If they noticed my forced politeness, they didn't mention it. They probably thought I'd finally fallen in line, given up on my own dreams, and resigned myself to my role as the family's quiet shadow. But behind that calm exterior, I was laying my traps. First, I secured my own finances. I moved the small savings I'd scraped together into an account under my name, only away from the joint family account my parents still had access to. I applied for scholarships I'd been hesitant about before, set up a separate mailing address, and quietly found a part-time job at a local bookstore where I could work nights and weekends. Then I started digging. If they had one secret account, maybe there were others. I spent hours combing through financial records, old tax returns I found buried in the filing cabinet, and emails I could access through the old family laptop they barely touched anymore. What I found went deeper than I'd imagined. They'd taken out a second mortgage without telling me, drained my childhood savings account, and even used my social security number to open a credit card in my name. I felt the betrayal like a physical blow, the kind that leaves you breathless and dazed. But I wasn't going to confront them. Not yet. Not until I had everything in place. I started collecting evidence, screenshots, copies of bank statements, emails. I kept them all on a secure USB drive, which I hid in a hollowed-out book on my bedroom shelf. I even created a spreadsheet carefully documenting every financial misstep, every betrayal, every time they'd chosen Lena over me. Then came the final step, cutting the cord. I waited until a quiet Sunday morning, the kind where my parents lounged around the kitchen sipping coffee and pretending we were a normal, happy family. I walked in, my heart pounding, and set my phone down on the table between them. "Hey," I said, keeping my tone light. "I just wanted to talk to you about something." My dad lowered his newspaper, his eyes narrowing slightly. My mom looked up from her coffee, her smile brittle. "What is it, honey?" she asked, her voice a touch too bright. "I've decided to move out." Silence. The kind that stretches into an uncomfortable echo, ringing in your ears long after the words have left your mouth. Yeah, move out. My dad repeated, his tone sharp, like I'd just suggested something obscene. Yeah, I continued, keeping my voice steady. I've been accepted into a scholarship program that covers my tuition, and I've found a place near campus. It's small, but it's a start. My mom's face went pale, her fingers tightening around her coffee mug. But what about Lena? She needs our support right now. We all need to stick together as a family. I almost laughed at the irony. Family. That word had never included me, not really. I appreciate everything you've done for me, I said, the lie sour in my mouth, but I need to stand on my own 2 feet. They exchanged a look, a silent conversation that spoke volumes before my dad leaned forward, his voice dropping to that cold, hard tone he reserved for serious conversations. Is this about money? He asked, his eyes boring into mine. Because if it is, we can talk about it. Family sticks together. I smiled, letting the bitterness seep into the edges. Oh, I know all about sticking together. I've seen the bank statements, Dad. I know where the money's been going. I know about the second mortgage, the secret account, the credit card in my name. Their faces went white, my mom's jaw dropping in genuine shock, my dad's eyes narrowing in sudden panic. I'm done being the backup plan, I said, my voice steady despite the furious pounding of my heart. I've collected enough evidence to bury you both financially. I'm leaving, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. Before they could respond, I grabbed my phone, turned on my heel, and walked out, leaving them sitting there, mouths open, their carefully constructed world cracking around them. I didn't stop until I was outside, the cool morning air hitting my face like a splash of cold water. I took a deep breath, the first real, unencumbered breath I'd taken in years, and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: freedom. I didn't look back after walking out that morning. It felt surreal, stepping away from the only life I'd known, like peeling off a too-tight sweater that had been suffocating me for years. I loaded my car with the essentials, clothes, my laptop, that USB drive of evidence, and left without another word. The first night in my new apartment, I sat on the thin mattress I'd dragged in from the thrift store, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes, and let myself breathe. Really breathe. The silence felt heavy, but not in the oppressive, judgmental way it had at home. This silence was mine. Over the next few weeks, I threw myself into building a new life. My part-time job at the bookstore expanded into more hours, and I picked up a side gig tutoring at the local community center. I found myself staying late, not just for the extra money, but because it felt good to be in a place where I wasn't walking on eggshells. My parents, of course, didn't let go that easily. I ignored the flurry of texts, the voicemails that started polite but quickly turned desperate. They tried everything: guilt, anger, even dragging Lena into it. She left me a long, teary voicemail about tearing the family apart and how I needed to come home so we could work this out. I didn't respond. I blocked their numbers. Then, one afternoon, I got a notification that someone had tried to access my bank account. My heart raced as I logged in, half expecting to find my savings drained, but the account was still intact, untouched, my balance sitting safely in the green. I checked the login attempts, my mother's email address. The audacity made me laugh, a bitter, relieved sound that echoed off my empty apartment walls. They weren't just trying to control me emotionally anymore, they were trying to manipulate me financially, even from a distance. That was the final straw. I pulled out the USB drive and logged onto my laptop. It was time to finish what I'd started. First, I sent a neatly organized packet of evidence to their mortgage lender and credit card companies, highlighting the fraud they'd committed in my name. I included copies of the unauthorized account openings, the forged signatures, and the emails I'd found detailing their schemes. I didn't stop there. I submitted the same evidence to the local authorities, attaching a cover letter that outlined my situation in painstaking detail. Then, for good measure, I forwarded a copy to Lena's employer. I figured her pristine reputation deserved a reality check too. Finally, I drafted a long, carefully worded message to my parents. I kept it simple. I know everything. I've reported everything. You can't manipulate me anymore. This is goodbye. I hit send, closed my laptop, and leaned back, the weight of years of resentment, betrayal, and self-doubt finally slipping off my shoulders. Over the next few weeks, the fallout hit like a slow-motion car crash. I heard from a mutual family friend that my parents had gone into panic mode, scrambling to cover their tracks. Lena, too, had apparently been blindsided, her perfect life knocked off balance by a wave of financial audits and frozen accounts. They tried to contact me again, of course. I received a final email from my mother, her tone oscillating between pleading and indignant. She claimed I'd overreacted, that I was being cruel for not understanding the sacrifices they'd made for me. I didn't respond. Instead, I threw myself into my studies, my work, my life. I made new friends, surrounded myself with people who valued me for who I was, not what I could provide. I even adopted a scruffy rescue cat who, unlike my parents, didn't demand anything from me but affection and a warm lap. One evening, as I sat on my tiny balcony watching the sun dip below the horizon, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "We miss you. Can we please talk?" I deleted it without a second thought, leaned back and closed my eyes, letting the cool night air wash over me. For the first time in years, I felt truly free. Story 2. My brother believed he could take my wife away. Even worse, my mom sided with him. However, I had a strategy. They are still unable to speak about what transpired that evening. It has been a little more than a year since my wife Emily, a 29-year-old woman, and I, a 30-year-old man, got married. To be honest, I never imagined that we would actually connect after meeting on a dating app. Yet we clicked right away. She was easy to chat to, nice, amusing, and intelligent. I quickly came to the conclusion that she was the one. Before I proposed, we dated for 9 months, and 3 months later, we were married. It was quick, really. I don't regret it at all, even if some folks felt we were hurrying. The finest thing that has ever occurred to me is Emily. She teaches art at a high school, really bright and imaginative. However, she has experienced a great deal in her life. She has been living alone since her parents passed away in a car accident when she was 20. I was drawn to her because of her independence and fortitude. She is the kind of person who isn't broken by the difficulties in life. She simply continues, regardless of how difficult it becomes. That was something I liked about her right away. Personally, I can also say that my life hasn't been particularly easy. To put it mildly, my family is complicated. I was raised by my 54-year-old mother, Janet. My dad left us when I was 10 years old, leaving my younger brother Liam, 28, and older sister Chloe, 32, alone. He didn't pass away or accomplish anything admirable. In fact, he simply left one day. He claimed to have an out-of-state business opportunity. After packing a bag, I left the house. We didn't see or hear from him again after that. I believe it broke Mom despite her best efforts to appear brave. She leaned heavily on Liam when she broke. At the age of 8, Liam's mother cared for him like a delicate little prince who required continual attention. "He's too young to comprehend why his father left," she used to say. "He requires more care." That additional focus never ceased. We were left on our own, Chloe and I. However, Liam, he got everything handed to him. If he wanted something, Mom would find a way to make it happen. The newest game console, the best sneakers, you name it. Liam got it. Meanwhile, I was working part-time by the time I turned 15, just to buy basic school supplies. Chloe and I used to joke about it, calling Liam the golden boy. But the truth was, it wasn't funny. It was frustrating. Liam grew up spoiled and entitled, and Mom only made it worse. She babied him through everything. When he dropped out of community college after one semester because he said it wasn't his thing, Mom didn't even bat an eye. She just shrugged and handed him the family laundromat to manage. By manage, I mean he barely showed up while Mom ran the business herself. Meanwhile, I worked my butt off to get where I am today. I put myself through college with scholarships and part-time jobs, got a degree in software development, and landed a solid job at a tech company. You'd think Mom would be proud of me for that, right? Nope. To her, I just got lucky with computers or whatever. Liam, on the other hand, was the real success in her eyes because he was running a business. Yeah, okay. Despite all that, I still tried to maintain a decent relationship with my family. It wasn't easy, but I figured they were still my family at the end of the day. When Emily and I got married, she suggested staying close to them. She thought it would be good for us to have a support system nearby, especially since she didn't have any family of her own. I wasn't thrilled about the idea, but I went along with it because it meant a lot to her. We bought a little house a few minutes away from Mom's place. At first, I thought maybe it wouldn't be so bad. Mom seemed to really like Emily. She kept telling me how lucky I was to have such a sweet, well-mannered wife. Chloe was also great. She's always been the normal one in the family. But Liam was another story. Liam had this way of making everything about him. If Emily complimented something about the laundromat, like the cafe Mom had set up in the corner, Liam would act like it was his idea. Even though everyone knew Mom was the one keeping the place afloat. Mom, of course, encouraged all of this. She'd say things like, "Liam just loves spending time with you, too. It's nice to see him getting along with your wife." Anyway, things seemed fine for a while. Emily and I were settling into married life, and I was adjusting to having my family so close. I believed I had everything under control. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's that when it comes to my family, things are never as straightforward as they appear. Looking back now, I feel like I should have caught on sooner. At first, it appeared innocuous. Liam was being unusually nice to Emily, but I believed he was only trying to bond with her since she was new to the family. He'd show up at our place unexpectedly with coffee or snacks, claiming he just happened to be nearby, or he'd bring over a tool he thought we may need for the house, like a wrench or a screwdriver. Even if we didn't seek for aid, he even bought her an expensive jewelry once. It was a little excessive, but I brushed it off. I mean, he was my brother. Why would I suspect anything weird? Emily didn't say anything about it either. At least not at first. She'd grin and thank him anytime he delivered something, but I could see she wasn't fully comfortable. She's nice to a fault, constantly concerned about upsetting others. I assumed she was only being kind. To be honest, I assumed Liam was simply trying too hard to be helpful and was socially uncomfortable. Liam probably has to learn how to take a hint. I even joked with her once. The problem is that Liam wasn't only dropping in sometimes. He was doing it frequently, perhaps several times a week. I recall saying to Emily once that at this rate we may as well give him an extra key. I didn't like anything in her eyes, even if she was laughing. I dismissed it because once more, I believed I was overanalyzing the situation. Liam's birthday meal followed. Like she usually does for him, Mom made a big deal out of it. She created his favorite cake, made a number of foods she knew he liked, and even used balloons to adorn the home. For our family, it was just another Liam is the center of the world moment. Since we couldn't avoid it, Emily and I went. Additionally, I reasoned that it could be pleasant to have a typical family get-together for once. It was a good start to the supper. Everyone was talking about odd topics as we sat around the table. Liam was in his typical arrogant mode, making jokes and ensuring that he was the center of attention. Mom began to explain about how unique Liam was and how he only needed the proper person to help him settle down at one time. "Someone like you, sweetie," she murmured, turning to face Emily. "You would be ideal for him." I went cold. Before Emily could react, Liam smiled and continued, "Yeah, Emily, you and I would have been perfect together." Emily was utterly uncomfortable. Regretfully, Eric reached you first. My stomach turned, yet everyone laughed as if it were a harmless joke, playing it casual. I feigned a laugh, but on the inside I was furious. Who would say such a thing to their brother's wife? I didn't want to spoil the occasion, but I wanted to call him out then. And then, I thought I would discuss it with him later. Emily was silent on the way home. She simply nodded and stated she was weary when I inquired how she was feeling. I couldn't stop mentally reliving the exchange, but I didn't press her. Liam's expression as he said that to her. It was more than a joke. I had the unshakable impression that more was happening. It took Emily a few days to open up. After supper, she waited until it was just the two of us sitting on the couch. She began by stating she didn't want to start a fight, but she thought I should know what was happening. At that point, she informed me about Liam's behavior against her. Evidently, it was more than simply the sporadic presence or the regular visits. He was looking for reasons to approach her. When he was thanking her for something, he stood too near, brushed against her arm, and even attempted to hold her hand. He said things like she had the most beautiful eyes, which were far too personal, or that she was worthy of more than someone who puts in a lot of effort. She mentioned that she had been attempting to dismiss it, obviously alluding to me. However, everything began to seem overwhelming after the birthday supper. She no longer knew how to deal with it. Emily informed me she didn't want to cause conflict in the family when I inquired why she hadn't told me sooner. She didn't want to further the situation because she knew that her mother always supported Liam. She also expressed doubt that I would take it seriously. The fact that she questioned if I would cause her back pain made that section painful, more than Liam had ever done. I informed her that I fully believed her and that I would not tolerate this. I had trouble sleeping that night. I kept playing back what she had said to me, even all the minor details I had disregarded or overlooked. Uninvited. Liam makes an effort to help Emily, finds reasons to talk to her, and shows up. Now, everything was adding up. Liam wasn't only being amiable or uneasy. This was a very other matter. The next day, I began to pay more attention. I wanted to witness Liam's reaction when he didn't believe I was observing, so I refrained from speaking to him immediately soon. As expected, he arrived at our house that afternoon with a fictitious justification that he needed to borrow a tool. He hardly acknowledged me before turning to face Emily, saying as he handed her a coffee, "I thought you might benefit from a pick-me-up." Despite her awkward appearance, she gave him a courteous thank you. I tried not to lose it there, so I clenched my jaw. I promised Emily that I would speak with him after he left. At least not just yet, she said. She stated that until we had a better plan, she didn't want to escalate the situation. It wasn't easy, but I agreed. After that, I wanted to punch Liam in the face every time I saw him. I detested the way he pretended that nothing was wrong, as if he didn't constantly make my wife uncomfortable. I realized now that things couldn't continue in this manner. Something had to give. But I was unable to contain myself after a week of seeing him perform the same stunts. I made the decision to speak with him. I pretended that I needed assistance with anything when I invited him to my place. I didn't waste any time when he arrived. I informed him that I was aware of the strange remarks he had been making, the way he had been standing too near to Emily, and his attempts to persuade her to leave. He initially just looked at me as if he was shocked that I had actually called him out. Then, as if I had just delivered the world's best joke, he burst out laughing. He shook his head and replied, "Dude, you're being paranoid." To me, Emily is like a sister. I would never act strangely. I get along with her better than you do, therefore you're simply envious. I stood my ground even though that final bit touched a nerve. "Stop it," I told him. That Emily felt uncomfortable with his actions, and we were going to have a big issue if he didn't quit. He remarked that I was exaggerating the situation, shrugged, and walked away without saying anything more. I felt much worse after that. I was not taken seriously at all by Liam. He undoubtedly found my anger amusing, if anything else. Emily was appreciative of me defending her, but she wasn't shocked by his response when I informed her about the exchange. According to her, he will not change. Regretfully, she was correct. I realized something needed to change after that encounter with Liam. I couldn't continue to act as though nothing was wrong. And to be honest, I was infuriated by the way he dismissed it with laughter. I was done at that moment, even though I had been holding back and attempting to maintain harmony. I was aware that we couldn't continue to live so near to his mother and him. I couldn't keep placing Emily in circumstances where she had to put up with Liam's crap. She deserved better than to feel stuck in her own house. At that point, the thought of relocating emerged. Just as all of this was happening, the timing was nearly uncanny. I received an opportunity to work in Kansas City. Although I hadn't been actively searching for it, my name had been brought up to a supervisor by an old college friend who works for the firm. I received the call a week later. They were giving a respectable wage increase and were looking for someone with my skill set. After that birthday meal and Liam's increasingly eerie conduct, I wasn't sure whether I wanted to move anything, but it felt like a sign. One night, Emily and I discussed it. I informed her of the offer and the fact that it would require her to relocate out of state. She seems relieved right away. "Is it possible for us to just depart in that manner?" Her voice was a mixture of doubt and optimism as she inquired. I understood her meaning. I didn't even want to think about how Liam would react, and Mom wasn't going to take the news well. However, I informed her that we no longer owed them anything. We must act in our own best interests. Over the following few weeks, we planned the move. I provided notice at my previous employment, informed my employer that I was taking the offer, and began looking for a home in Kansas City. Emily was outstanding during the entire ordeal. While I did the job, she looked through postings, created virtual tours, and even packed the majority of our belongings. Logistics. Chloe was the only one we told. I trusted her since she had always been the family's pillar of support. Not to reveal the truth. I informed my mother that we were relocating. She pretended that I had just told her that the end of the world was near. "You're moving? What do you mean?" Her voice was brimming with incredulity as she inquired. "How about the family? Are you planning to abandon us? How about Liam? He will be devastated." I rolled my eyes so hard at the final paragraph that I thought they may become stuck. "Mom, we must act in our own best interests." I spoke aggressively. "This is what Emily and I desire, and it's a terrific chance for my career." It wasn't warmly received by her. She remarked that I had abandoned the family. I think Emily was the one that pushed me to go. Mommy conduct is normal. When things didn't go her way, she was always pointing the finger at someone else. It was pointless for me to argue with her. There was no purpose. It was tough to get Mom to change her mind once she made a decision. Fortunately, Liam had not yet learned of our intentions. That's how I intended it to remain. It was a melancholy day as we departed. I realized that I wouldn't be seeing Chloe as often after she came over to assist us in loading the moving truck. "You're doing the right thing," she said, giving me a tight hug. Nobody should be able to make you feel bad about it. Emily gave her a hug in appreciation for her unwavering support. I trusted Chloe when she said she would keep our address private. She had witnessed enough of Liam's actions to understand why we had to go. It was a long but surprisingly quiet drive to Kansas City. I talked to Emily about everything we wanted to do. Explore the city, pick up new interests, and perhaps even adopt a dog once we've made our home. After weeks for the first time. Emily looked truly content. She even made a joke about using all the art supplies she had been accumulating to decorate the new home. I was eager to move past the family drama because it felt like a new beginning. Late in the evening, we reached the new residence. Even though it was only a modest 2-bedroom house in a peaceful area, it felt like a mansion in contrast to the stressful environment we had been living in. Unpacking boxes, arranging furniture, and familiarizing oneself with the space occupied the following few days. Emily was in charge of decorating, and I must say that she did a fantastic job. It truly felt like home by the end of the week. Emily also began to calm down. She even began to sleep better and stopped leaping at every slightest sound. We were watching a movie one evening while lounging on the couch. "I feel safe here," she replied, resting her head on my shoulder. I wasn't prepared for how hard their words affected me. It wasn't until then that I understood how much she had been suppressing. I put my arm around her and assured her that we would always have this peace together. But despite my best efforts to concentrate on our new life, the nagging feeling in the back of my mind persisted. Liam. Since we left, I hadn't heard from him and I hadn't informed him that we were relocating. A part of me wondered how long it would continue, but another part of me felt relieved. Unusually, Mom hadn't phoned either. She was still mulling about our treachery, I assumed. Despite our resolve to relocate work and start a new life away from the toxic family relationships that had been holding us back, Emily and I decided not to let it get to us. We seem to be in charge, at least for the time being. And for now, that's plenty. When Liam learns of our relocation, or if anything else comes up, I'll let you know. The hint is 1%. Hi there, everyone. Since things have been hectic, I thought it was time for an update. I wish I could say that since we moved to Kansas City, everything has been easy, but that isn't the truth. Things have changed, and I'm finding it difficult to comprehend how far this has progressed. After a few weeks here, it seemed like a new beginning for the most part. Perhaps I reasoned we had finally moved past all of the turmoil. I was mistaken, boy. Emily first observed someone outside a few days ago. She noticed Liam pacing in front of our house while she was in the kitchen unloading some dishes. She initially believed it may have been someone who resembled him. He had no reason to be aware of our residence. Then he repeatedly rang the doorbell. He was shouting, "Emily," while holding a bunch of flowers. "All I want to do is chat." I was shocked to hear that when she informed me. How on earth did he discover us? We kept our move a secret from him and our mother. Chloe was the only one who knew, and I had total faith in her. But there he was, like some eerie stalker standing outside our door. While I phoned the police, I instructed Emily to remain still and not open the door. Liam was gone by the time they got there. Their statement that they couldn't do anything unless he returned or directly threatened them was annoying but not unexpected. I contacted Chloe later that evening to ask how in the world Liam had discovered us. She was first perplexed and swore fervently that she hadn't told anyone. But she paused as we continued our conversation. After that, she sobbed and told me the truth. While assisting us with packing, Liam had taken a duplicate of our home key from her. He must have opted to keep our address to himself after discovering it on a piece of mail or one of the moving boxes. Chloe was horrified beyond belief. She repeatedly apologized, claiming that she was unaware of what he had done until now. She felt bad about not watching him closely, but I couldn't really blame her. Liam was solely responsible for this. I was upset with him because he went too far. Chloe didn't stop there, though. She also said a few more things that made me feel nauseous. Liam had been surreptitiously shooting pictures of Emily during family get-togethers, some of which were very eerie, proving that his fascination with her was deeper than I had previously believed. Unaware that Liam was taking photographs, Chloe claimed to have seen photos of Emily in our previous home, either reading a book or lounging on the couch. Even worse, he had been capturing her voice while she spoke and piecing together lengthy audio files that he had repeatedly listened to. What I was hearing was unbelievable. This was no longer merely innocuous boundary-pushing or flirtation. It was outright stalking. How did I allow things to get this far? Although I was aware that Liam had problems, I never thought he was capable of such a thing. I kept playing back all the times I dismissed his actions, telling myself they weren't serious. Now, though it was obvious that Liam was dangerous based on what Chloe had told me, I could no longer afford to be careless. When I told Emily what Chloe had said, she was a little shocked but not shocked. There must be more to it, she thought. She acknowledged the way he gazed at me. His words always seemed strange. She expressed her gratitude to me for listening to her concerns and advocating for her, but I could see that she was becoming tired of the whole thing. She began to jump at the slightest sound and before going to bed checked the door locks many times. Seeing her in that state shattered my heart. We discovered additional evidence that Liam had been observing us the following day. Emily discovered a note written in Liam's handwriting and addressed to her when she was organizing the mailbox. It was rambling and unintelligible, full of statements like, "I'll wait forever if I have to," and "You're the only one who understands me." It reinforced what I already knew, and it was spooky as hell. Liam was not going to abandon us. When I presented the letter to the police, they once more claimed they were powerless, unless Liam appeared again or threatened directly. We are investigating their suggestion to file for a restraining order. It's a process, though. We have security cameras put around the house in the interim, and I have been recording every correspondence, text message, and event. If this becomes worse, I want to make sure we have as much proof as we can. Naturally, Mom isn't helping. Once I informed her of Liam's actions, her first instinct was to defend herself. "Uncomfortable? I'm just angry." "Oh, you should have told him before you went away," she added. "He has no idea how to deal with it." She even had the audacity to accuse Emily, claiming that he wouldn't have misunderstood if she hadn't been so kind to him. What I was hearing was unbelievable. Good. Mom was using Emily's politeness as an explanation for Liam's actions, since she didn't want to start a fight. She needs to wake up and see that Liam wasn't being too sensitive, I informed her. My wife was being stalked by him. After that, Mom hung up and hasn't given me a call since. It's difficult, but Emily and I are making an effort to be strong. She seldom ever travels anywhere by herself, and she has deleted all of her social media accounts. I don't want to leave her alone, so I've begun working from home more frequently. I can't help but glance over my shoulder whenever I leave the home, half expecting to spot Liam hiding somewhere nearby. It's draining, and it seems like we can't get away from him no matter how far we travel. One thing is certain, even though I have no idea what will happen next. Liam is more than simply an overgrown boy with a crush. He poses a threat, and I will stop at nothing to keep Emily safe from him. Family drama is no longer the only aspect of this. It has to do with safety. As events develop, I'll keep everyone informed. Right now, our only priorities are keeping alive and attempting to determine what to do next. Next update 2%. Hello everyone, I've returned with an additional update. Liam has once again shown me that I was mistaken to believe that things could get worse. We feel as though we are living in a horrible movie right now. However, there isn't an off button. Sincerely, I'm worn out, and Emily is hardly able to function. All I have to do is get this out. So let's get started. A week or so following my previous post, the first incidents occurred. Emily had begun returning to her routine, pretending that nothing had changed. I really understood that she didn't want to feel imprisoned in her own house. She visited her favorite art supply store one morning. She enjoys visiting this small mom-and-pop store, which is around 15 minutes away, to peruse and find inspiration. At first, nothing caught her attention, but as she was heading out, she noticed Liam's car parked across the street. She initially believed she could be seeing hallucinations. He followed her when she got into her car, even though she persuaded herself it may have been someone with a similar vehicle. Nor did he attempt to conceal it. All the way home, he remained a few vehicle lengths behind her. She was driving when she phoned me. "I think he's following me," she continued, her voice trembling. I advised her to be composed. I would meet her in the driveway if you drove straight home. There was no sign of Liam's automobile as she drew in. The harm was already done, but he must have switched off before she reached the home. Emily was sobbing and trembling that she was hardly able to exit the vehicle. I helped her inside after holding her for what seemed like an eternity. "I shouldn't have gone out," she insisted. "I ought to have remained at home." She wasn't listening to me when I attempted to explain that Liam was at blame and that this wasn't her fault. We informed the police about the event, but once more they were powerless without hard evidence that he was following her. They recommended that we maintain a record of everything and notify them if it recurs. I inquired about purchasing a GPS tracker for Emily's vehicle in case we had to provide evidence that he was pursuing her. We purchased one the same day after the officer indicated it was a good idea. Even more terrifying was the subsequent episode. Emily had been spending her mornings in a local park to get some fresh air and decompress. Since it was constantly crowded with families, dog walkers, and runners, she reasoned that it was safe. She heard someone calling her name one morning as she was sitting by the pond, making sketches in her notebook. When she looked up, she saw Liam seated on a bench nearby, observing her as if he had been there the entire time. Emily went into a panic. Liam followed her as she gathered her belongings and began to go back to her car. He simply continued to follow her a few paces without saying anything. Upon arriving at her vehicle, she secured the doors and departed. She claimed that the expression on his face was enough to haunt her for days, even though he made no attempt to stop her. According to her, he appeared composed, as though his presence was quite natural and he wasn't even acting inappropriately. I was furious when she informed me when she got home. It was unbelievable to me that he had discovered her in the park. He seemed to be watching her every step of the way. I immediately went to the police station and asked them why they were unable to take further action. They acknowledged my annoyance but reaffirmed that further proof was required to establish a more compelling case for harassment or stalking. I informed them about the park and gave them the GPS tracker data from the initial event. They claimed that while it was helpful, we still required more. Emily was now too afraid to leave the house by herself. She informed her supervisor that she needed additional time off and canceled her intentions to return to work. If she chose to return, her supervisor was very accommodating and even offered to have someone at work check her calls and mail. Although Emily was appreciative, I could tell that it didn't calm her down. She began experiencing nightmares, weeping, or struggling to breathe when she woke up in the middle of the night. Even though Liam wasn't physically present, it seemed like he was everywhere. I saw her sitting on the hallway floor one evening, simply gazing at the front door. She said, "I'm just making sure it's locked," when I inquired what she was doing. I was devastated to see her in this state. She used to be so strong and self-reliant, but now she was afraid to be in her own house. I assured her that I would stop at nothing to protect her. To be honest, though, I was also afraid. For her, not for me. I was no longer sure of Liam's abilities. In order to make Emily feel safer, we made the decision to make a few adjustments around the house. We placed motion sensor lights outside, upgraded the locks on all the windows and doors, and even installed a doorbell camera that notifies us if someone approaches the front door. Additionally, I put in place a mechanism that would allow her to click a button on her phone to sound an alert in the event that she felt endangered. Although it wasn't flawless, it was still preferable than nothing. Naturally, Mom wasn't helping. A few days after the event at the park, she contacted me to inform me that I was exaggerating. She said that I was exaggerating the situation and that Liam was only attempting to put things right. She was making things worse and enabling him, so I urged her to keep out of it. "He's my son," she said defensively. "I cannot simply ignore him." I hung up on her even though I wanted to yell at her. Her justifications were getting to be too much for me. We're simply trying to live day by day at the moment. I'm trying my best to support Emily, who has begun treatment to help with her anxiety. Although it's draining, I have faith that we will overcome this. Liam may believe he can manipulate us, but he is mistaken. We will not allow him to prevail. I'll provide another update if anything else occurs. We appreciate everyone who has been watching and commenting on this. You don't realize how much it matters. I genuinely don't know where to begin after a 3% update that was followed by another update. I feel like I can't wake up from this nightmare. Prior to what occurred lately, I thought things were awful, but now they're even worse. Please be patient with me as I attempt to comprehend everything. It began as any other night would. Around 10 o'clock, we ate dinner, watched a little TV, and went to bed. As usual, we made sure the alarm system was armed and checked the locks twice. We were getting ready for bed, and for some reason I felt nervous. Maybe I'm getting worried since I keep looking at the front door, I even joked to Emily. "Better paranoid than careless," she remarked, giving me a little smile. How long we had been asleep when it occurred is unknown to me. Emily was screaming when I woke up, and it chilled me to the bone. I woke up in bed confused, attempting to understand what was happening. I saw him at that point. Liam. He was seated in one of the chairs. Probably he dragged himself in from the kitchen. Positioned just beside Emily's bedside. He was muttering something I couldn't understand while he held her hand. She had a terrified expression on her face. I briefly believed I was dreaming. How on earth did he enter? The windows were closed and the door secured. Everything was safe. But he was there. Like none of that was important. Before my brain could react, my body moved. Leaping from the bed, I swung at him, toppling the chair and sending him flying to the ground. He made an effort to defend himself, but this time I wasn't holding back. I yelled for Emily to dial 911 while pinning him down. While I kept him there, he repeated the same grumble repeatedly. I should have her. You're not worthy of her. He spoke in a soothing, almost robotic tone, as if he truly believed what he was saying. It was among the most unsettling experiences of my life. The time it took for the cops to show up is unknown to me. It seemed like a lifetime, yet it was really just a few minutes. They took Liam off the ground, tied him, and began questioning him when they eventually arrived. We found out how he got in at that point. He had been observing us for weeks, learning our habits and biding his time. In order to prevent the alarms from going off, he was able to turn off the electricity before entering. He brought a duffel bag, which the cops also discovered. There was a bottle of chloroform zip ties and duct tape inside, and I'm still feeling bad because of this portion. A ring for a wedding. From our living room, he had also taken a framed picture of Emily. She carried it in the bag as if it were a trophy. The entire situation was quite unsettling when they were removing him. "This isn't over," Liam remarked, staring me in the eye. I'm not sure if he genuinely thought he would have another chance or if it was just to frighten me, but it made me shiver. Emily, meantime, was sobbing and trembling while sitting on the floor. She's never looked so terrified to me. My heart was broken. The hours that followed were a haze of inquiries, police reports, and attempts to console Emily. How did it come to this point, she kept asking. What was he doing? And to be honest, I had no answers. I thought I had let her down, as if I ought to have done more to keep her safe. We weren't really comforted by the police's assurance that Liam would be detained without bail because of the circumstances of the incident. There has been a lot of fallout. Ever since that night, Emily has had trouble falling asleep. Even though we know he's in jail, she flinches at every small sound and keeps stating she feels like he's still monitoring her. Although her therapist has been making an effort, trauma of this nature takes time to heal. After what occurred, she can't bear the idea of remaining in this place, and she's even mentioned wanting to move again. I don't hold her accountable. I think about how close we were to something far worse every time I enter the bedroom and see that chair on the floor. In addition, I've had to cope with my mother, who is predictably in complete denial. She really made an effort to protect Liam when I phoned to let her know what had transpired. She said she wasn't a horrible person. He simply wants assistance and is bewildered. Bewildered. The man used chloroform and duct tape to break into my residence in the middle of the night. I advised her to wake up and see that Liam was more than simply her newborn child. He was a threat. She became irate and accused me of attempting to destroy his life. Then I ended the call. I can't waste any more time on her justifications. We're making accusations. Naturally, given all of the evidence they discovered in Liam's backpack, it appears that the police are treating this seriously. Even though they have promised us that he would serve a lengthy jail sentence, I still find it terrifying to think of him being out there at some point. To ensure that everything is done correctly, I've also engaged a lawyer who focuses in situations similar to this one. I want to ensure that Liam is held accountable for his actions, not just to us, but also to Emily in particular. None of this was fair to her. Emily can't force herself to return to the bedroom, so she's now sleeping in the guest room. To help her feel less alone, I've been sleeping on the couch close by. We're considering relocating, despite the fact that it is tiring to consider packing up everything and beginning again. But I'll do it without hesitation if it makes Emily feel safer. The fact that this is my life still amazes me. A year ago, I was simply a man hoping to start a future with the woman he had married. I now have to deal with police reports, restraining orders, and a brother who has become a full-fledged stalker. It's unbelievable, not in a positive manner either. I'll leave it here for the time being, though. We appreciate everyone's support and interest in this. Throughout all of this, it has been a lifeline. As soon as we get more information on the charges and the future steps, I'll provide another update. Right now, our only priorities are remaining safe and getting by each day. For a 4% update. Hello, everyone. Most likely, this will be my final update. Since a lot has transpired, we genuinely want to close this chapter and go on with our lives. I am very grateful for all of your support and guidance. I can't express how much it means. A few months following the break-in, Liam's case was taken to court. He was accused of attempted kidnapping, breaking and entering, and stalking. Particularly with the duffel bag, the evidence was overwhelming. The eerie diary writings they discovered in his home and his recordings of Emily. The court sentenced him to 4 years in jail after he entered a guilty plea. To be honest, I wish it had lasted longer, but at least he is no longer in our life. Mom wasn't exempt either. She had been giving Liam details about Emily's routine and pressuring him to win her over, it turned out during the inquiry. She was even aware of his intentions. Additionally, it was revealed that Liam had followed women before to Emily. They had been bought off by Mom to keep silent, believing that getting married will help him. The court had a different perspective. She received a 3-year probationary sentence after being prosecuted as an accessory. The nicest aspect, to be honest, is that she is not permitted to communicate with us. For our part, we relocated to a new home across town, but chose to remain in Kansas City. After everything that had occurred, Emily couldn't bear to stay at the old home, and I didn't blame her. The trauma is still affecting her. She said she didn't want to resemble the person Liam had developed an obsession with, so she colored and chopped her hair short. She also began dressing more loosely. Even still, it pains me to watch her feel as though she must alter who she is in order to feel secure. She is gradually regaining her confidence, and therapy is helping. We have severed all communication with Liam's mom and the majority of the family. The only person we still communicate with is Chloe. She has supported me through everything, even going so far as to testify in court against Mom and Liam. The rest of the family continues to believe that we are exaggerating, stating that Liam needs assistance, not punishment, and that family is family. Yes, thank you, but no. Though not flawless, life is improving. Emily has returned to her part-time job, and we are concentrating on starting over. All of this has taught me a lot. Primarily, blood does not imply that you owe someone your safety or tranquility. You shouldn't always stay in the family you were born into. Now Emily and I are creating our own family, one based on respect and love rather than poison and justifications.